Hello, this is Luisela Sugalski. I'm the job coach. I'm an active member and current member of the Department of Employment Services for Nationality Service Center, or also known as NSC. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you decided to click the bottom of this video, that means it's because you are eager to learn more about the work, how the U.S. work culture works. So to me, that's very exciting. Because in this video in particular, and for this topic in particular, we're going to have a very special person for me, which is Dana Gold. Dana Gold is also an active member of the Department of Employment Services at NSC. We work together in the same department. She is one of the job developers who is part of this department. So for today's jobs topic is called U.S. job cycle from a job developer perspective. Before we start, I would like you to introduce yourself, Dana, and welcome.
Thanks, Luisela. So yeah, my name is Dana Gold. I'm a job developer here at NSC. I do a lot of things like work with clients to apply to jobs. I work with the employers, and so I get to see the cycle from both sides of the process. And I work with interns and the rest of the team just to make sure that everything is going smoothly, and so that folks are connected to good opportunities in order to maintain jobs going forward. So I'm glad to be here with you, Luisela.
Yeah, that's great. And actually, when I was in the process of, doing some plans about this topic, the reason why I thought of you is because of how important is the job that you do on a daily basis as a job developer. And since I work closely with you, I do know the information that you get constantly from the perspective of the employers and from the perspective also of the clients is very meaningful and important to share. That's the way I feel, and I'm pretty sure all of our clients, NSC clients, are going to agree with me. So let's start talking then about the definition. What would be your definition of the U.S. job cycle, not only as a job developer, but also as an American? Because I would like to hear that perspective of yours, like from both perspectives.
Definitely. Well, the U.S. job cycle, two words I would use to describe the U.S. job cycle are long. It's definitely a long process, and it's an involved process. So those are two words I would use to describe it. I really like this chart. I know that Luisela uses this chart in Job Club, so if you've attended Job Club, you may have seen this. Otherwise, it's a great chart to have because I think it's a comprehensive overview of what the job cycle is like. So we can start up here at finding job opportunities, and from there we apply to jobs. So finding job opportunities. So that is one of the, maybe the most involved processes in the whole cycle. Finding job opportunities includes researching what career you're looking to work in, looking at specific openings within that career. It can include the different methods for doing that. So finding job opportunities online, in the newspaper, through your current job, through friends, neighbors, somebody at your church, or other place of worship. Finding job opportunities is really the beginning of the whole cycle.
And why would you say is one of the most important phases or stages of the U.S. job cycle?
I mean, this is one of the most important ones. I think so like I said, the whole cycle, the job cycle, is extremely involved. And if we go back to the picture of the whole chart, we can see that the whole thing is a cycle, but really here it's a cycle within the cycle. And so I think that the finding job opportunities and finding job openings is one of the most important parts of the cycle, because in the United States, they say that an average of 100 job applications results in one job offer.
Wow,
Now
that's amazing.
that varies between like, industry and time of year and how healthy the economy is at any given time. But some studies have shown that 100 applications that you send can result in one offer. So that's
Wow.
why it's so important to network, reach out to all your contacts. Like I said, where you currently work, your neighbors, your friends, family members, anyone that you know from any community you're in, to network, meaning ask people if they know of any job opportunities for you, so that you can apply to them. Sometimes you never hear back. That's normal. So you keep applying to jobs. You keep finding more jobs. You keep applying to those jobs, finding more jobs, applying to those jobs, and eventually you'll get an interview. And this is definitely something that anyone, regardless of status or any like nationality, wherever you come from, if you're applying to a job in the United States, this is the process that you will follow. So you'll start with finding opportunities, continue to applying to those opportunities, hopefully interview at a few of those opportunities. And then you might get asked to complete a background check or complete a drug screening, do a drug test. Pending the success of those, you're hopefully offered a job and you complete the new hire paperwork. You have your start date, which is also called your first day of work. You get your first paycheck. You complete your 90-day probation. Usually companies require you to work 90 days before any benefits will kick in. And then sometime later, you might decide you're ready to move on to a new job. So you continue the cycle again. You find job opportunities, you apply, you find more opportunities, you apply, eventually it's an interview, and the cycle continues, regardless of who you are. If you're applying to a job in the United States, this is the process you will follow.
That's great to know, because I sometimes I get that question from the clients during our sessions during job club.
Mhm.
Going back a little bit to the finding job openings,
Yeah.
then we can move on to the apply phase. I know at the very beginning you mentioned that there's like different ways to find jobs here in the US. So you mentioned online, meaning we gotta use the internet. You also talked about newspapers or magazines or out there stores. What would be your opinion, once again, as an American and also as a job developer for NSC? What is the best way, or not necessarily the best way, but the most common way people here in the United States apply for jobs?
Yeah, that's a difficult question. I think the most successful way, I'll start with that. The most successful way people find jobs is through what we call networking. So networking means that you are talking to people in your network, so people that you know, or even people you just barely know. Maybe you met them once, that's networking too, to ask them, hey, you work at this company, is your company hiring? Can I work at your company as well? So for example, there are about 60 people that work at Nationality Service Center. For example, if I were looking for a new job, I might ask some of my coworkers, maybe they've worked at another nonprofit that I'm interested in working at. So I can ask my current coworkers, hey, you worked at this company. Do you know anyone there that I can connect with to apply, and maybe you can put in a good word for me? So that's one way to do it, is asking current coworkers, whatever company, whatever organization you're at. Chances are there are a lot of people that have worked at a lot of other places, so people have connections. And I would say that's the biggest way to find job openings. Another way, and before I leave that topic, networking can be with your neighbors. So you can ask your neighbors if they know of anyone that is looking to hire. You can talk to people at any community spaces that you belong to. So whether that's a place of worship, maybe it is your child's daycare center. Maybe it is some sort of affinity group or, you know, weekly group that you're a part of. Maybe friends or family members work somewhere. It is very normal in the United States to tap into your network, to access the people in your life, to find jobs. And that is not something that is very common in other countries. So since working at NSC, I've learned that networking is a pretty American thing. It doesn't exist. It doesn't really exist in other countries. And that's something that we've had to teach our clients how to navigate, because it's a super American thing. But some studies say that over 70% of jobs are found through networking.
Wow, so that's a big number.
It's a huge number. So that's to say that it's very common and even encouraged to network to find a job. There's, if anyone is familiar with Facebook, that is there are job finding site like pages within Facebook, but there's also a similar social media program called LinkedIn, similar to Facebook, but it's for your professional life. So I have a LinkedIn page, Luisela has a LinkedIn page, we're connected. And so with her connection, I can access her network and she can access my network, so that we can build our professional lives.
That's right. I know, like I think I have lost the counting of how many times I have heard you saying that to our clients. I always get to hear that advice from you, and I honestly, I really think it's very important. And like networking, is that only important like when it comes to like looking for jobs, but it's also important like when you need like a professional reference. That's important too. Like let's say I'm not longer part of NSC and I'm in the process of looking for a job, and this potential employer is asking me for professional references. So you could be one of those professional references just because we got the opportunity to work together for an X amount of time, right? So that's also very important when it comes to networking. And I always say this to the clients during Job Club, and it's that not only is for you can use networking for finding a job, is pretty much for everything, like any information. Like for example, like my current dentist, the way I found out about this dentist was because I was networking. I'm part of a WhatsApp group. In this WhatsApp group, I sent a message asking like, hey, any recommendations about dentists? And they did it. That's how I got myself a dentist here in Philadelphia. So I mean, in anything, like minor things. So I think it would be safe. It would be safe to move then to applying for jobs. So what information can you share about applying for jobs?
Applying for jobs can be one of the more time-consuming aspects of this whole cycle. There are a few ways that you can apply to jobs. These days, it's online. And there are a few elements required for starting a job. So the first element is your resume. In some countries, they call it a curriculum. And it's mostly the same information as a resume. A CV and a resume are mostly the same, but a resume, so they both have your education history, they both have any relevant work experiences, they both highlight your skills and accomplishments as they relate to the job you're applying to. So there are a few differences, but they're mostly the same. And so the resume is the first important part for applying to jobs. The second important part can be what's called a cover letter. So sometimes at a job, they ask for a cover letter, which goes a little bit more in depth into your skills. So where your resume kind of talks about the highlights, the cover letter is your chance to really show your writing skills and your ability to think critically about the skills that you're listing on your resume.
So cover letter, it really is a letter to the
It
employer.
Is a letter. I mean, you write.
Potential employer.
If I'm applying to a job and Luisela, I know, is the person who's reading the cover letters, I write, "Dear Luisela, my name is dgold," and I go from there. So, well, I would probably write, "Dear Miss Sugalski," to be a little more formal.
So it would be safe then to say, you have to make sure like to personalize the cover letter. Well, when the employer asks for it. What if the employer, what if I found a job opening in any of these employment websites and they ask me for the resume, but they don't ask for the cover letter? Is it okay for me to send my resume and complete the online job application without sending the cover letter? Is that okay?
So my biggest piece of advice for applying to jobs as you're sending applications is to do exactly what the job listing says. So if they're asking for a resume and 3 references, you should send your resume and 3 references. If they're asking for a resume, a cover letter, and a writing sample, you should send your resume, your cover letter, and a writing sample. If they don't ask for something, there's no need to send it. And so that's an important part of the job application process overall, is that they're in some ways, they're kind of testing your ability to follow instructions, right?
Yeah, that's true.
If you think about a job overall, going to work and doing a job it can be more specialized, but it kind of, like, in very simple terms, is, are you able to follow instructions and complete those tasks on time? And so the job application process is a good kind of snapshot ability for the employer to see, does this candidate have the skills to listen to instructions, follow them exactly, and do them on time? So many job applications will say, we want a cover letter, resume, and 3 references emailed to this email address with this subject line, due on this day. And so what that means is you have to send your resume, your cover letter, and 3 references. You have to email it to that email address that they said, put a certain subject line, and turn it in by a certain date. Now,
so no more, no less. So
no more, no less.
So they specifically what they're telling you to do.
If they are not asking for a cover letter, there's no need to send the cover letter. If they're not asking for the references, there's no need to send the references. Maybe in a few days or a few weeks, as you go through and start interviewing and stuff, then maybe they'll ask you for references, or they'll ask you for your salary expectations or something like that. But for now, as like the first step, when you're first making contact with a new company, when you're applying to a job at a company, it's important that you follow the instructions to a T.
Okay, so I guess it's okay. I mean, in the American work culture, to not add any professional references on the resume, only if the employer asks you to provide any later on.
That is, that's kind of a preference thing. It's not common on American resumes to include references. The reason for that is that the resume in the United States should be 1 page. That means just the front side of 1 page, not 2 sides, not multiple pieces of paper. And because of that, there's often space issues. You have all this great experience and skills and history that you want to include on that page, and it can't go more than 1 page. So if you take up space for references, you're wasting space on your resume. And truthfully, employers don't have that much time. They're not going to call your references or email your references until you've already interviewed and the employer is serious about hiring you. So if you are wasting space on your resume with references and you don't even make it to an interview round, maybe if you had used that space to highlight a few more skills and a few more work experiences, you would have made it to the interview round.
Oh, so that makes sense. So just to clarify, so what you're saying is like the reason why like in the American culture, people don't tend to add those professional references on the resumes because it takes up a lot of space that I can use by showing my qualifications or academic background and work
Yep.
experience. Plus, it's not necessary at that point during the hiring process. I guess it's more important after you get interviewed and the employer kind of like, huh, I like this person, so I kind of like
Yep.
wanna consult their the professional references of these candidates. So that's pretty much what you're saying.
Exactly, because truthfully, no employer is going to reach out to your references until they're very, very close to offering you a job.
Yeah, it makes
So,
sense. So after I have to dedicate so much time and I have to send X amount of applications, whether they're online or paper or via email, to these potential employers, I get this phone call or email that makes me excited about, hey, you have an interview this
yeah.
day, this time, and is with this company for this job opening we have available. So any word that you can give us about first, very simple definition of what is a job interview here in the United States, and definitely the do's and don'ts of job interviews.
Yeah, I feel like I could talk about interviews and interviewing for hours.
I know. I know.
But I will do my best to keep it brief. I think an
Yeah.
interview is ultimately a conversation. So it's questions that the employer is asking you. It's also a good excuse for you to ask questions to the employer. I think there's a common misconception that interviews are the candidate getting interviewed. So if I am applying to a job at NSC and Luisela is interviewing me, there's a common mistake that she's the only one that gets to ask me questions, right? But I get to ask her questions
Yeah.
as well. An interview
Yeah.
is a great chance for the employer to get to know you, and it's a great chance for you to get to know the employer. Because let's face it, if you're at a job, maybe you're working 40 hours in a week, that's probably more time than you're spending with your family, even. You're
Yeah.
spending all of daytime, perhaps, at this job. You want to make sure that they're a good fit for you, just as much as you're a good fit for them. So
Wow,
what that
that's
looks
great.
like,
So it's accepted, like commonly accepted, that people or candidates ask questions,
yeah.
any type of questions during a job interview.
Yep. So let's talk about the logistics, the steps for an interview. So
Yeah.
like Luisela said, it might be, you might get a phone call or an email, or you might have to access a portal page, kind of like an internal website within the company's website to see if you have an interview. Once you're offered an interview, it's important that you confirm it. So they might say, can you interview on Tuesday at 3 p.m. or on Thursday at 3 p.m.? It's important that you respond and say and confirm which day and which time. So that's the first step, is that you have to confirm the day and time.
Also, they normally give you options then.
They
about
will.
what your availability.
They'll often give you options. Yeah. So it's important that you make sure it's a day and a time that you're available. That you don't need to leave early to pick up your kids. That you'll have childcare. That you don't have to walk your dog. That
Yeah.
able to get there with public transportation on time.
Yeah.
So
Good point.
yeah. So it's important to make sure to check your calendar and everything, just to make sure that it's a day and a time that you're available.
So those are the type of things that we have to do prior to the interview.
That's one of the things you have to do prior to an interview. The next thing you have to do prior to the interview is do your research. So it's important to make sure you know who you're interviewing with. So the company name, the company's mission and the purpose, what their work is. You want to do as much research to see who are the people, the person or people that you will be meeting with.
Where can I normally get that type of information? The information of my interviewer or the information and the information of the company?
So you can go to the company's website. Most companies will have a website or at least like a Facebook page that people can like. One of those should have at least a little bit of information about the company and hopefully information about the people in HR or the specific department that you're hiring for. So it's important to do research because it'll calm your nerves. If you are prepared, you'll be able to have a conversation more easily. And that's ultimately what you want to show, is that you can have a conversation easily. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Another thing to prepare for is your outfit. So
the outfit.
It is, yeah, it's kind of a fashion show. No, it's important though to wear professional clothing. You kind of can't go too formal for an interview. If you're wondering, should I wear a tie or not? You should wear a tie. If you're wondering if you should wear a blazer or not, you should wear a blazer. It can't hurt to dress more formally than you think. You kind of
if I'm not sure like what to wear, is it safe to ask to whoever is in charge to set up this job interview, like prior to the interview, just to play safe?
That's a good question.
Or you think it's just is like better just to go formal, that's it, no matter what?
That's a good question. There are a few industries that I can think of where it's not necessary to dress super formally. Ultimately, though, this is where research comes in. So it's important to research for the position that you're applying for and see online what people are saying about how to dress for an interview like that. A better resource, I think, than asking the employer would be the NSC employment team. So if you have questions about interviewing and dressing, especially dressing for interviews, or questions they might ask, Luisela, me, Emma, Nasser, we are all available to answer questions about preparing for interview. So I would say that's a better resource.
The employment team,
Yep, exactly.
So besides the outfit, that would be it. And what about during the job interview?
So the things, every single time I take a client to a job interview, I remind them of 3 important things. Eye contact, handshake, and smile. If you forget everything else that you've prepared, it's important that you make eye contact with the people that you're meeting with. It's important that you have a strong handshake. Maybe after the COVID-19 crisis is over, but it's important to have a strong, firm handshake, and you make eye contact during it, and that you smile the whole time.
And
those are the 3 things that I always remind clients of.
Our clients and myself are come from different countries, different cultures, where punctuality can be read in different perspectives. What about punctuality when it comes to job interviews in the United States?
So if you're late to an interview, it is very unlikely that you will get the job. In the United States, once you start working, once you have a job, you're hired, you have your first day of work, if you're even a minute late to a lot of jobs, they might fire you. Punctuality is really important in the United States, and that starts at the job interview. So for example, if you have an interview at 1 p.m., you should arrive no later than 12:45.
So at least 15 minutes before.
I would say, I would suggest arriving 15 minutes. Now let's say that you are relying on SEPTA, on the bus, on the train to get to your job interview. You must leave an extra hour and a half, then more than you think, to take SEPTA to arrive to your interview on time. We all know, anyone that's been on the bus or the train here in Philadelphia knows that it's pretty temperamental, at least with timing. So it's important to plan ahead and leave a lot of extra time, because if you get there early, you can review your questions. You can review your
That's true.
answers. You can get a feel, you can walk around and get a feel of the company. Maybe it's an office, maybe it's a store, maybe whatever it is. Maybe there's a place where you can get a coffee beforehand just to relax.
And even for those clients who have a car as well, like you don't know how the traffic.
Sometimes there's traffic in Philadelphia, and unfortunately, employers don't care that there was traffic. They expect you to plan around it and leave very early so that no matter what, even if there is traffic, you arrive at the interview on time.
Okay. What other things would you recommend to our clients when it comes to interviews? Like after the interview, for example?
Yeah. So one more thing just before / kind of during the interview is I would recommend either asking the employment team or doing research online on your own for the kinds of questions that you might be asked in an interview in this industry. So it's always good to plan and prepare answers for the most common interview questions, which often have to do with like communication, timeliness, like stress or high pressure workplaces, things like that. It's important to have an answer prepared so that you're able to give coherent and strong answers during the interview. It's also important to plan questions that you want to ask them, because remember, you're getting interviewed, you're also interviewing the company because you want to make sure they're a good fit for you. So you should have questions prepared that you can ask them that you can't find on the website. So
what is the right moment to ask those questions, by the way?
At the end. So that's a good question. At the end of an interview, the employer will say, do you have any questions for us? And that's your chance to ask questions. If it makes sense during the interview, you can ask questions. If you have a question based on the question they've just asked you. Usually though,
would you say 1, 2, 3, 5?
It's up to you. It's up to you. I personally have 3 go-to questions that I always ask at interviews. When I'm applying when I'm applying for a job, but it's really up to you and the information that you think is necessary. I think it's important to ask the employer, what is your favorite part of working here? Because it's important, because that's a way for you to understand about office culture or company culture to make sure, again, that it's a right fit for you.
That's right.
I like to ask, what is a challenge about working here? It's important in interviews that you stay positive. So you don't want to ask, what's your least favorite part about working here? Because you want to stay positive. But it's important that you understand, what are the challenges about working here?
Yeah, that's true. That's a good one.
And so then they can answer, well, sometimes it's really, the deadlines, we have a lot of work to do and we have really strict deadlines, and that can be a challenge. So then I know, okay, what kind of culture and expectations I'm getting myself into.
Okay.
And then another question to ask is, what are the next steps in the hiring process?
That's what I was going to ask. Is it okay to ask that question?
Yes, absolutely. It is always acceptable to ask that question. I like to save it as the last question that I ask because it's a really good segue to say goodbye and end the interview. But it's a great chance for you to understand, okay, maybe I have to do a second interview. Maybe I need to complete a background check or do a drug test. Maybe I need to do all these different things, provide references in order to complete the application process. An interview is part of the application process.
If I forget, should I bring with me copies of my resume and cover letter if that was required from the employer when I decided to apply? For that job in particular?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. It's always good to bring maybe 3 copies of your resume and 3 copies of your cover letter for that job that you applied to, as well as a list of references just in case. Let's say maybe they ask you to email them your references after the interview, but if you already have it, then it shows you're prepared. Employers want to see that you're prepared. So
Okay.
I always bring copies of my resume. And when the NSC office is open, we can print out your resume for you.
Oh,
And
that's
so you
great.
can just have some resumes on hand. We can print out like 5 copies, and then you can just have them ready for if you go to an interview, you can bring them.
Yeah, that, and thanks for the reminding. That would is, I think it's it would be good to just remind to the clients that we now have a computer lab, and that computer lab will actually allow all of them to use the computers to apply for jobs, for example, or to write a resume, or write the cover letter, and or print the resumes, right, for future job interviews, right?
Yes.
Just to clarify, before we move on to the next one, which is background check and drug screening. So I guess after the job interview, so the employers are going to ask for professional references. All of them do it, or some of them do, some of them
It depends
don't.
on,
What is your
yeah.
perspective?
It depends on the industry, and it depends on the type of job. Sometimes they'll ask for references, sometimes they won't. References, professional references are people who you've worked with. So it could be a coworker of yours, a former coworker. It can be a former boss or supervisor.
Okay.
If you've never worked in the United States before, a professional reference could be Luisela, your job coach. It could be me, a job developer at NSC. It could be your case manager, just anyone that can speak to your abilities, to your qualifications, and your professionalism.
Yeah,
That's
that's right.
why in employment services, we're always making sure that people are communicating with us if they have to reschedule a meeting or intake. If you can't come to job club one day, that's why it's important to tell Luisela, because this is practice and we're able to see your professionalism. So
Yeah, exactly. It's kind
if
of
you're
like a
missing,
pre-training, right?
exactly, and if you're missing job club a lot and you're not telling Luisela that you're going to miss it, that's not very professional. And when you come and ask us for a professional recommendation, we will give it to you, but it'll be a little more challenging because you didn't demonstrate the professional aspects that we're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
One last thing
It
that I
happens
want.
very often, right? Because a lot of our clients, they're looking for their first job in United States. So that means like a lot of them, unfortunately, don't have any professional references, right? So
Definitely.
and
So,
they help us and be one of those professional references, right? So
yep. So, pretty much any staff member at NSC can be a professional reference.
that's
And
good.
then
And what about the background check and drug screening?
So background check and drug screening, some jobs ask for it, others don't. So this is not always going to happen. It really, again, it depends on the job you're applying to, at what type of company, in what industry. There's a lot of factors.
Okay.
If you pass the interview stage, the employer might ask you to complete a background check and do a drug screening. Sometimes it happens on the same day as the interview. Sometimes you have to do it on your own time or come back another day to complete it. This is, again, another chance for you to demonstrate that you can follow instructions. So,
but chances are that it's not going to happen before the job interview.
It almost definitely will not happen before the interview. Because these things cost money and they only want to spend that money on people that pass the interview. So it costs companies money to complete background checks and perform drug tests.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's why it won't happen before the interview. But it might happen the day of the interview. After the interview, if they feel good about how it went, they might say, well, why don't you come here and complete the background check? It just means putting in your name, your address. They'll ask for your social security number. That's a chance where it's okay to share your social security number, and any other kind of demographic information about that. And so that might happen.
The employer will be ready to actually do a formal job offer.
Yes. So a formal job offer comes if you pass the interview or interviews, you pass the background check, drug screening, they will offer you a job. So that could be a phone call or an email. And it often has instructions for paperwork to complete.
What kind of paperwork?
So
Like
you'll have, yeah, so that might include, so it'll include just information about you, like your name, maybe emergency contact information. Say something happens to you at work, they need to have, you know, somebody's name and number on file to call in case something happens, like to you, in case there's an emergency at work. There's also 2 very important documents that you have to complete for every single job in the United States.
Okay.
One of them is called a W-4. So a W-4 is new hire paperwork that tells the company about your tax information. And so it allows the company to withhold the appropriate number of an amount of taxes from your paycheck. Okay. So if you indicate, you know, whether you're married or not, if you have children or not, that all affects how many taxes are taken out of your paycheck. So the W-4 is required for every single job.
And in case that we don't know how to fill it up, the employment team can help you, by the way.
Absolutely. We do this all the time. And so again, if you have W-4s that you have to fill out, we are here to help you complete it.
Yeah. Even the HR department, they in each company, they normally help the new hire
as well. And there are a lot of resources online. YouTube is a great resource for this kind of thing.
That's true. Especially now that there's a new form that came out this year.
So I think every year or every 2 years, they change the form a little bit, which is kind of annoying. So that there's a 2020 version of the W-4. You must complete that one, not the 2019 version. Again, you will have to provide your social security number. So why is that? Well, it has to do also with your I-9 form. So there's another document that you have to turn in as part of the new hire paperwork called an I-9. With the W-4, those are the 2 pieces that every job will ask you to complete. The I-9 form is a document that certifies that you're allowed to work in the United States legally. And so there are different laws, different rules about who can work in the United States and who can't. It proves to the company that your immigration status certifies that you're able to work legally.
And what are those documents that people normally present?
So the I-9 is a piece of paper that you fill out that has information about you, and it also is a chance for you to show documents. You can show, for an I-9, you can show a U.S. passport.
That is, you're a U.S. citizen, right?
If you're a U.S. citizen, you show your U.S. passport. If you don't have a U.S. passport, you can show your social security card, your original social security number card, and your state ID or driver's license from the United States, most likely from Pennsylvania. So if you have your social security card and your state ID together, you use the information on those to fill out your I-9. You'll also need to provide your A number or your USCIS number on the I-9, and that certifies that you're able to work in the United States. So if you have a social security card and a state ID, you're ready to work in the United States. If you're not sure if you have those documents or you're not sure about how to fill out the paperwork, tell Luisela, tell me, tell anyone on the employment team, and we can help you. We can set up an appointment to help complete that paperwork. One last thing is you will have to bring those documents, social security card and state ID, to your first day of work and show your employer.
I have to bring the original ones then.
You have to bring the originals. Yep. So very rarely, I don't even think they're allowed to accept copies. So that said, they will make a copy, and that's normal. That's okay that they make a copy of those documents.
So that brings us to the next phase. The the next phase, which is the start date. So
Yep.
those are the type of documents we have to bring with us for the start date.
For the start date. Just real quick.
Just to make sure and clarify, what is the start date? What does it mean?
Start date. So start date is your first day of work. It means the first day that you will get paid. Once you do the interview and you're offered the job, you complete the background check, you pass the drug test, everything, they will say, okay, your first day of work is May 15th. And on May 15th, you had better be early. So a start date is your first day of work that you're getting paid for. And it's important that you're on time.
Okay.
In the United States,
so I guess we have to apply the same rule as when we go to a job interview. Like if they tell you 9, you gotta be at least 15 minutes earlier.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Because maybe the interview wasn't at the exact place that you'll be working at. You want to make sure that you can park and get there on time, or that the bus gets you there on time, that it's just important to be early. In the United States, in professional culture in the United States, there's no excuse for lateness. You have to be early. So like Luisela said, if you're supposed to be there at 9 a.m., you should arrive at 8:45.
And what about the dress code? I should apply the same rule too? What do you think?
That's a good question. It can't hurt, but it's also important to know what kind of job you're doing. So if you are working maybe you're working as a chef in a kitchen, it's not appropriate really, and you probably don't want to wear your nice suit with tie that you wore to the interview. So when you get your start date, when they email or call you, offering you the job, saying your first day is this day, you can ask, what is the dress code?
Yeah, in case they don't tell you, right? Maybe they forget to mention that, so it's okay to ask.
Yep, it is very appropriate to ask.
Okay. And during that first week, not only the start date, during the first week, what people normally do?
During your first day and your first week of work, it's important.
Do people train? I mean, do companies train in the US?
Yeah. So that's definitely, especially if you're doing your first job in the United States, or you're in an industry that you have little to no experience in, you're most likely going to go through training. So generally it's paid, which is great. Training means that you're learning the skills and you're learning the logistics for doing the job that you just got. So either you might be shadowing someone else doing that job, or somebody will be teaching you directly how to do the job.
Like observing like what that person is doing. Okay.
During training, it is so important that you try your best. So that means being on time every day. Okay. It means having a good attitude. So if they're asking you to do certain tasks within reason, it's important to try your best and be open-minded to everything that they're asking. And pay attention.
And a start date, just to clarify too, a start date is not the same to first paycheck. That's going to happen in a different moment.
So in the United States, most jobs pay on a weekly or bi-weekly schedule. So that means that you work for a whole week and you don't get paid. And you work for a whole second week and then you get paid. So a lot of jobs, I would say most jobs in the United States will pay you after every 2 weeks of work.
Okay.
The reason for that is kind of a complicated scheduling process, but it's just important to know that
process, I guess, and the structure of the payroll of the company.
But if you are working for 1 week and you don't get paid, don't worry, you'll get paid the next week. So that's also a good excuse to learn and figure out budgeting and saving money and planning your expenses.
Okay.
Paychecks will often come. Paychecks will often come either hard copies handed to you every 2 weeks, or you can sign, if you have a bank account, you can sign up for something called direct deposit. which means that the company will not give you a physical check. It means that they will just immediately electronically deposit the money into your bank account. And there's specific paperwork to sign up for direct deposit.
Okay.
If you're interested in doing that, you can come to the employment team at NSC and we can help you fill out the paperwork.
But
But
overall,
you must have a bank
what
account.
would I need in order for me to get the money, my salary, to my, like without getting a check? What do I have to do? Or
Say it again?
what do I need?
Say it again?
For me to be enrolled in this direct deposit mode, like what do I need for that?
So you need to have a bank account. And so it's, that's mostly what you need. You need to have a bank account, which will have an account number and a routing number, which are kind of technical terms to describe a certain bank account. And what that allows is for your employer to pinpoint your bank account to put the money into your bank account.
Oh, okay. Okay. So just to move forward to the very last step, 90-day probation, what that is? What is the definition of it?
So 90-day probation, that's kind of like a scary term. I think it's kind of a harsh sounding term for your first 90 days. So sometimes it's 90 days, sometimes it's 30 days. It's company specific, but it means that if your company offers benefits, you have to wait 90 days until you can access the benefits. So you need to wait 90 days until you can take paid time off or access certain health benefits or whatever it is. It also is kind of like a trial period. And so it's really important, not just in your first week, but in your whole first 90 days to really prove yourself and show the company that you deserve this job, that you're learning quickly, you're trying your best, you're proving that you're worthy of this job.
Okay, so it's not only important like to do all the things we're supposed to be doing since the moment we apply for the job in all the way through the job cycle. Also the 90-day probation is important, like like you said. It's as important as the other steps prior to that. Okay, perfect. Do you have, I think before we just finish with this conversation today, any general tips you have based on the common mistakes that our clients do? While looking for jobs?
I think so one of the biggest, I don't want to call it a mistake, but something that I've noticed since working at NSC is that there are a lot of cultural differences between the professional cultures that some of the NSC clients come from and the US professional culture. That's to say that what might be acceptable in one country is not necessarily acceptable in the United States in terms of professionalism and job searching and performing at a job. So part of the job of the employment team is to teach those skills and teach clients about what it means to work and be successful in the United States in terms of employment. And so I would say definitely listen to the employment team. That it also says that if you have questions ever about a job, whether it's a job that we connected you to or you found on your own, our job is to help answer them. So in the United States, it's very common to to ask questions to your supervisor and to your boss, or get clarification on something, or it's not, sometimes we see clients quit a job because there was a small issue at work. That's something that we can help with. And so if there's ever an issue at work, it's our job to help resolve that issue. So maybe it's a scheduling issue. maybe there's a religious concern that we can help navigate. Whatever it is, the employment team is here to help. So I just want to make sure that that plug is there. I also see some mistakes at interviews. I want to stress again how important the interview is. It's perhaps the most important part of the whole application process because it's your chance to meet the employer in person and demonstrate that you're capable.
Yeah.
So that means you turn your phone off before an interview. You're not on your phone during an interview. You are paying attention, or at least, looking like you're paying attention during an interview, and asking questions when you don't understand. And so I think some NSC clients maybe have never been to an interview before, so it's understandable that there are some issues with that, but just trying your best, I think, is the ultimate thing in an interview. And whatever, if you think it's right, then you should do it.
Yeah, that's true, because I have heard from different clients in the past that they feel like asking for clarification or asking the interviewer, can you please repeat? It would be like a sign of not, good level of English. And I always tell them that is important to repeat. It's better to ask for clarification and
Absolutely.
hey, can you please repeat the question, so you can be able to answer that question correctly, instead of saying something that doesn't have anything to do with the question they just asked you, right?
Absolutely. So there, and I'm glad you brought that up. So if you're at an interview and you don't understand the question, it is acceptable and even encouraged to say, can you please repeat that? Or can you please rephrase that? Maybe they used a certain word you don't understand. Maybe they can rephrase the question so that you understand it better. That is acceptable. It is very appropriate and it's encouraged. Because if they're asking you about one thing and you answer based on what you thought they asked, but that wasn't what they asked, so you don't end up responding to the question, then that sounds unprofessional. But if you don't understand the question and you ask them to repeat it and you understand it the second time, well then they know that you're not afraid to ask for help, which is a good professional tip and skill.
Yeah.
And it also demonstrates that what it would be like on the job. They can trust that if you don't understand something, you'll ask for clarification instead of just trying it and ending up doing it wrong.
I'm gonna ask you one more thing, and I know it's gonna be an information that a lot of our clients are gonna appreciate, and is what happens if after I got the job, I realized for different reasons I don't like the job and I want to quit. So what would you say is the two most important things to keep in mind when I don't like the job? What should I do?
The first thing, well, I think it's really three things. So if you're still enrolled in a program at NSC, we would love to know that you don't like your job, because maybe the reason you don't like it is something that can easily be fixed, and you can maintain employment and you can maintain an income and continue to support yourself and your family. So that's the first thing, is tell somebody at NSC that you don't like your job. The second thing is if you really don't like it, you know it's a bigger issue than something that can be resolved with your case manager or the employment team. I would recommend finding another job. So stay at your current job until you know of another job you can go to. Because if you quit your job and then it takes you 6 months to find another job, that's 6 months of not having any income.
Okay, so keeping the job and looking for a new one.
Yep, that can happen at the same time. Yeah, and that's very common to do those two at the same time.
And when it's okay to start doing that?
When is it okay?
Yeah, like is it safe or professional for me
Yeah.
to leave a job and take a new one?
There's no need to tell your current employer that you're looking for a new job. So maybe you're applying to new
Oh,
jobs,
that's
you're
good.
interviewing. I do not have to tell my current employer that I'm looking for a new job. But
Okay.
as soon as I accept a new job, I have to tell my employer 2 weeks at least before I quit my job. So if today is May 1st, for example,
Okay.
I have to tell and I know that I want to quit this job. The earliest I can quit is May 15th, because that's
Okay.
2 weeks in the
2
future
weeks.
from today. So in the United States, the most professional thing is to give what we call 2 weeks notice. So if I want to quit on May 15th, I have to tell my current employer on May 1st, 2 weeks ahead of time, that I want to quit.
Okay.
Now, let's say you've already accepted another job. So you have to give 2 weeks to your current job and then figure out your start date for your second job. Tell your new job, hey, I'm currently working. I gave 2 weeks notice today. So the earliest I can start at your job is 2 weeks from today, because I'm
So you
quit.
kind of like have to manage both employers.
You have to
at the
manage
same
both.
time.
Now, it's a very professional thing to do. And if you tell your new employer that you can't start earlier than 2 weeks from today because you have to give notice, that's a very professional thing, and it'll be very impressive to your new employer, because then they know when the time comes, if you're leaving them, you'll be respectful and professional and give them 2 weeks notice.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long do you think we should stay in a job, like the minimum, in order for us to include it in our resume?
If you want to include a job on your resume, I would recommend staying for a minimum of 6 months.
6 months?
Yeah. Sometimes you can, if it's really important, valuable, related work to another job you're doing, or if it's your very first job in the United States, 3 or 4 can be okay. But the most professional thing would be 6 months minimum.
Okay.
There's no maximum. If you love your job,
Of course.
then you should stay for years. if you're happy with it, you should stay for years. If you're not happy with it, you can go through all the steps we just talked about, get support from NSC, and access new job opportunities.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Dana. Thanks for your time. But especially thank you so much for all the information you have shared. I know from the very beginning, when I was thinking about doing this topic in particular, I know you would be the right person to do it, just because you live all this pretty much every day, every week with the department, and all those endless experiences with the clients. So thank you so much, and I'm really looking forward for the clients to appreciate all this information, and I'm also looking forward to have you in another topic very soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Luisela.
And thank you, viewers. Thank you so much. We're gonna make sure to leave all the information. If you guys have questions, or you guys are looking for additional resources, we are more than happy to recommend those resources. So make sure to contact me or contact Dana. I'm gonna make sure to leave our information, email, and phone number, so you guys can keep in touch with us if you want. So thank you so much.
Thank you.